Responsible production and consumption.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something you're probably hearing more and more about these days, this whole sustainability thing.
Right.
And we've got some super interesting research here. Really lays out how this is not just a fad, but kind of a fundamental challenge we've got to address.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that really jumps out from the material is just the sheer scale of, where we're headed if things keep going the way they are.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, by 2050, we're looking at potentially 9.6 billion people on the planet.
Wow.
And this research is saying, if our production and consumption habits stay the same, we'd need the resources of 3 Earths.
3 Earths, huh?
Yeah, 3 Earths to support everyone. It kind of paints a picture of just how unsustainable things are right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Talk about pressure on, on everything, really. Our natural resources, I mean.
Exactly. And that's really what this whole idea of sustainable development is all about, right? Like, how do we meet our needs now without totally messing things up for future generations?
Right. So that's our mission today, I guess, to really get a handle on, based on this information, why this whole responsible production consumption thing is so crucial.
For sure. And for our listeners out there who are probably seeing all this talk about sustainability everywhere, we're going to try to, break down the core arguments, like what's the big deal?
Exactly.
And one of the big things driving all this, as this research points out, is the huge growth we're expecting in the global middle class over the next, 20 years or so.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. More people with more buying power.
Right, exactly. And that means a big jump in demand for all sorts of goods and services. And if we're not producing and consuming those things in smarter ways, well, it's just going to put more and more strain on the planet, basically.
Makes sense. So what can we actually do about it?
Well, the research here points to two main paths, you could say, for individuals to make a difference.
Okay, I'm listening.
First is cutting down on waste,
Yeah.
big time. And the second is being a lot more mindful about the choices we make when we buy stuff.
Okay, sounds simple enough.
Yeah, but when you dig into the details, you see how much of an impact these things can have.
All right, let's dig in then. What about this waste reduction thing? Where do we even start?
Well, the example they give here with food waste is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
They say a third of all the food produced globally, like 1.3 billion tons of food, ends up wasted.
Seriously, that's a lot of groceries.
Yeah, and we're talking about $1 trillion worth of food. Just gone.
Wow. So what, is this all about people forgetting about leftovers in the fridge?
No, it's way bigger than that. This is happening at every stage, from how it's grown and produced to transportation to, all the way to what we do in our kitchens.
So it's not just on us, the consumers, then?
Right. I mean, industries and producers, they've got to step up and do their part to, optimize their processes and all that.
For sure.
But yeah, this research also really emphasizes how big of a role we play as consumers in cutting down on food waste. Being more aware of what we're buying, storing it properly so it doesn't spoil, getting creative with using leftovers, all that stuff.
Right. Makes sense. So beyond food waste, what else is there?
Well, there's the whole issue of plastics. This material straight up calls out plastics as a major culprit when it comes to ocean pollution.
Yeah, plastics are a huge problem.
It really highlights, the environmental fallout from our consumption habits, like how much we depend on single-use plastics.
And how we need to, use less of them.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about, making smarter choices when we buy things. And the textile industry, like the clothes we wear, is a really powerful example.
Okay. Yeah, tell me more.
Honestly, I was surprised to learn this, but the textile industry it's the second largest polluter of water globally.
Really? I had no idea.
Second only to agriculture, which is huge. That's a massive environmental impact just from the clothes we buy.
Wow.
And another thing this research brings up is the ethics of it all. Like, what about labor practices in developing countries where a lot of these clothes are made?
Yeah, that's a whole other layer to this, isn't it?
It's a direct link between our purchasing decisions and the social and economic impacts,
Right. So it's not just about buying things that are, eco-friendly, but also thinking about where they come from and how they're made.
Exactly. When we choose sustainable and locally sourced stuff, we're not just, helping the environment, but also supporting fairer working conditions for the people who make our clothes.
It really makes you think twice about those super cheap fast fashion deals.
Definitely. It's about understanding that, the price tag doesn't tell the whole story. There's a hidden cost there, environmentally and socially.
For sure. And speaking of hidden costs, what about the impact of, just running our homes, like all the energy we use and our carbon footprint?
Yeah, that's a big one too. The data here says that a whopping 29% of all energy consumption and 21% of carbon dioxide emissions come directly from our homes.
That's a pretty hefty chunk.
Yeah, it is. And they have this great example about energy efficient light bulbs, those LED ones.
Sure.
They say if every household globally switched to those, we could save like 120 billion US dollars a year globally.
Seriously. Just from light bulbs.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
But it really shows how these seemingly small things, when enough people do them, can add up to a huge impact.
It's all about collective action, right?
Exactly.
And this source doesn't shy away from other tough issues either.
Yeah.
Like, what about water pollution?
Oh, yeah. They make it pretty clear we're polluting water faster than nature can clean it up.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, especially when you think about, the health of our ecosystems and everything.
It all comes back to us in the end, doesn't it?
Pretty much. But what's interesting is that they also talk about the role of businesses in all this. They actually frame this whole shift towards sustainable production and consumption as, something that could be good for businesses too.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it's not just about being ethical, but also potentially being more profitable in the long run.
Sustainable practices as good business, huh? I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of win-win. And it brings us back to, our listeners out there. This research makes a big point about how even small changes in our daily habits can have a ripple effect.
Right. It's not about feeling overwhelmed by the whole thing.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our choices do matter.
Our individual choices.
Yep, they really do.
So what are we supposed to do?
Well, this source puts it like this. What habits need to change today? It's like a direct challenge to think about our own routines.
Okay, so let's put it all together. This whole deep dive into responsible production and consumption, it's been, eye-opening. We've got this growing population, limited resources, and a real need to change how we do things. Less waste, especially when it comes to food and plastics.
Right.
We've got to be smarter shoppers. Think about the impact of our choices, like with the clothes we buy.
Absolutely. And it all adds up, like how much energy and water we use in our homes.
We got to do something about that water pollution problem, too.
Definitely.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom, right? This research does offer a message of hope. Like, even small changes can make a big difference.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we can each play a part in building a more sustainable future.
So, on that note, here's something to chew on, folks. Remember that crazy statistic about food waste? 1.3 billion tons every year.
Yeah.
What one thing, if everyone did it, could have the biggest impact on reducing that? Think about your own habits. What can you change?
Good question.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
See you next time.
We'll catch you on the next one.